Again, it's good to see everybody here on this beautiful Lord's Day. And I'm following up to last Sunday's message. Kind of give some examples that are found in the Bible of allowing others to come back, allowing people to come back even though they've tasted the graciousness of Jesus. And whether or not God allows us to do that. If we look at the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, the prophets, every one of them has stories of how the people had sinned and repented and were allowed to come back to God. Even when, like in the Exodus story, they're at Mount Sinai and they make a golden calf because Moses had been up on the mountain for so long, they thought he was dead and wasn't going to come back down. They made a golden calf to worship. But yet God had mercy and allowed them to repent and turn back to Him. Even throughout the books of Kings, Joshua, Judges, the prophets, every one of them are telling Israel, you know what it's like when God's in control, when you allow God to do your stuff. But you've gone away, you've gone astray. You need to repent and get back with God. And they would. Another story is found in 2 Samuel with David. Now this takes place after David has ascended to the throne of Israel. And we call David the man after God's own heart. And we all know that David made mistakes. We're even given examples of mistakes that he made. But yet, he was still called a man of God, or a man after God's own heart, because he would repent. The one story that kind of shows an example of this is found in 2 Samuel chapter 9. It's talking about Mephibosheth. Now Mephibosheth is the only one left out of Saul's family that had a rightful legal claim to the throne of Israel, because he was Saul's grandson, son of Jonathan. And David had the right, since he had overthrown Saul and claimed the kingdom for his, he could have killed Mephibosheth so that he would have totally conquered the throne, but he didn't. He made Mephibosheth like one of his own sons. He provided for Mephibosheth, even though Mephibosheth was of the lineage that he had just overthrown with Saul and Jonathan and all the stuff that led up to David taking the throne. Now, one reason Mephibosheth did not try to exercise his right to the throne is he was lame in both feet. And at that time, the countries believed that if you were lame, had some type of illness, you were weak in any way, even though you were the next one in line for the kingship, for the throne, you could not take it. because other countries surrounding you would say, oh, look at their king. He's weak. Let's go in and take their country and overthrow them and bring them under our rule. And so that's one reason Mephibosheth never asserted his authority for the kingship. It's because he was lame in both feet, and he would have been viewed as a weak king, as a weakling. And David, yes, could have, like I said, had Mephibosheth killed to stop the claim of the throne. But instead, he had mercy on Mephibosheth because of David's promise to Jonathan and his love for Jonathan. He said, I will make you as one of my own sons, eat at my table. And he also restored the lands of Saul that Saul owned and Saul's family owned to Mephibosheth. And that provided for the rest of Saul's family through Mephibosheth, because Mephibosheth had a son. It's just one quick little verse about it. But the land that was set aside from Saul for Mephibosheth provided for the rest of the family. But Mephibosheth ate at the king's table as a son, even though he was still lame in both feet. And throughout the Old Testament, we have examples. That was just one of them. With Samson and Delilah. And there are several others. You know, you almost need to read and study the Old Testament, and you'll see time after time people have gone astray, or the whole country's gone astray, but yet they're allowed to return back to Jesus, back to God. In the New Testament, we have an example of that taught by Jesus himself. That's the parable of the prodigal son, found in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 31. And I'm going to paraphrase this one also. There is a son of a man. You know, the man evidently had great wealth. He had land. He had crops and animals. And so he was living pretty good. And the son said to him, give me my half of the inheritance, because I want to leave and go into the city. He thought the pastures would be greener in the city. And so his dad gives him the inheritance, allows him to go off to the city. And as he's there living the high life and everything that gets associated with the city living, you know, having parties every night and whatever else, he eventually runs out of money. And during these parties and stuff, he had a lot of friends around him. Or at least what he thought were friends. Because we're told later on that after the money ran out, he was living in the streets. His friends weren't there to help him. They weren't there to help buy him drinks or party with him anymore. He was eating out of pig troughs. He couldn't even get a job. And I don't know if you've ever slopped the hogs, as they used to do back way before my time. But the slop was everything left out of the kitchen. I mean, everything. Didn't matter if it was rotten or not. It all went into the slop bucket for the hogs, because they eat everything. And this guy's up there, is down there with the hogs, fighting for something out of that he could eat. And he is at his rock bottom. You got thinking, my dad's servants eat better than this. They have a better life than I've got. So I'll go back and ask to be treated as a servant. But instead, what happens? He goes back. The father sees him way off in the distance, coming back. He takes out running after this kid and meets up with him, throws a big hug around him, tells his servants, bring me the best robe in the house, put a ring on his finger, put shoes on his feet. Let's have a party. My son is back. And he welcomed him back into the family. He did not make him as a servant, but he restored him to his same position as he was before he left. A member of the family. And that is an example, an image of what God does when we stray away. Even though we are Christians and we turn away from Jesus for whatever reason, whenever we come back, He welcomes us with open arms. Then Peter is another example. He denied Christ 3 times on the night of the crucifixion. Now that's pretty serious, to deny Christ, that you don't know Him, even though you do. John chapter 21, verses 14 through 17 this is the third appearance of Jesus to the disciples. And it's right after He tells them to throw their nets on the other side of the boat after they'd been fishing and they'd caught a thing. And they did that, and they caught some fish, and they brought it up to shore, and they brought fish over and cooked them up and had breakfast with Jesus. And after they had all finished, Jesus was asking them, as Peter, he's asking them, who do men say that I am? And the disciples answered, some say Elijah, John the Baptist, which is kind of strange because John the Baptist had been killed while Jesus was alive. And others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets, such as Isaiah or one of those. And then Jesus flipped it. He said, but who do you say I am? Who am I to you? And Peter answered, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, right you are. And it wasn't flesh and blood that revealed this to us, but my Father in heaven who revealed that to you. I need to go back. I got ahead of myself. But before that, after they had finished eating, Jesus was asking Peter, do you love me? And Peter answered, yes, I love you. He did it 3 times. And each time, the Greek word that was used is a different word. And but the reason he did that, we believe, is he was reinstating Peter into his position within the disciples. Because now get back on track. After Jesus said, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah," or Simon, son of Jonah, and that it was revealed to him by God. He said, Simon, or Peter, "and upon this rock I will build my church." Peter in the Greek means rock. And so he was saying that through Peter, his church was going to be built, the Church of Jesus Christ. And then when we get into Acts, which is 50 days after 50 days after the resurrection, 10 days after the ascension, after Jesus had already ascended into heaven for the last time until he comes back, is when that comes true at the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. And then the rest of the New Testament with Paul. But from Acts chapter 2 through the rest of the New Testament is of the church being built upon Peter because of his sermon at the day of Pentecost. And throughout all these books, we're always told to repent. Turn to Jesus, because he is the only way to heaven, is through Jesus. And even in the book of Revelation, God is still giving people chances to repent. Doesn't matter where you are, what you've been doing, repent. Turn back to Jesus. There's even churches he warns. He's telling the 7 churches, there's some that he tells, repent and turn back to me, or else I'm going to do this to you. He gives them a chance, just like he gives us a chance. And he's always been giving us a chance. Even though we sin and fall short, we can return to Jesus and come back into the family of God. Even if we stray away from our church due to whatever reasons, when we come back and we say, I'm sorry, I repent of my sins, we are welcomed back into the church, back into the fold of Jesus. Just like with the prodigal son, the dad welcomed him back. Or whenever a shepherd goes after a sheep, he can lose one sheep out of 100. He'll leave the 99 and track down that one lost sheep and bring him back into the fold. So how much more is Jesus wanting us to stay in his fold? We can be a member of the fold, and yet we're human, we're going to fail, but we've always got the ability to repent and turn back to Jesus. And so as we come to sing the invitation, only trust him,
For 183.
183, you desire to join our church here, join our fellowship,